Alright you guys, and welcome back to a brand new sculpting video. And this week I felt like making another Pokemon. However, with my attention span being as battered as it is, making a normal Pokemon wouldn't provide enough stimulus to keep me entertained. So I thought, since making characters but fat is pretty much the theme of this channel, well, sometimes at least, why not make my pocket monster a bit chubby? And since it already took a while to come up with such an awesome idea, I didn't put any thoughts into which Pokemon could look the funniest, and just straight up went with making Pikachu. Obviously. Now, with my concept concepted, I got to sculpting my yellow rabbit, which starts out as an aluminium ball covered with some yellow clay. No surprises here. Where I can, after adding mandatory details like nipples and belly button. Well, except I didn't add any nipples. I'm sorry, I'll try to be better. Roll out 2 average sized wieners, which will, after giving them a total of 10 fingies, get blended to the body. With 2 little grabbers in place, I can get to making his head. Well, the head itself is just a ball, so to make it more interesting, I gave him a face, where I added 2 fat little cheeks, as well as a small but very efficient mouth. Followed by sculpting an ass. Oh no, it's his snout actually. Once blended in, I gave him 2 black balls for eyes, and a tiny whiny triangle for a nose. And it was at this point where I dropped him like 3 or 4 times while sculpting, cause I just couldn't stop laughing at his face. Anyways, using semi-functional scissors, I cut 2 pieces of wire, which I'll be using to connect the ears to his head. And that's the head done, so I blended it to the body alongside another chin, since the more chins the merrier, I guess. Then we're on to making his lightning tail, where I have to say, I'm pretty jealous. But I ended up making it a tiny bit smaller, since I'm not one to support portraying unrealistic standards on YouTube. Once my average sized lightning has been enclayed and shaped appropriately, I can press it into his butt, where it will sit comfortably. I can then spank some foil and build up his base, well, the first attempt at least, since I ended up setting it aside and making a flatter one since I didn't like it. And after sculpting and pressing his elongated feet into place, I added a stumpy leg to each. And that's one barely overweight bunny done, and ready for the oven. I guess I should see a doctor. I'm losing it, I'm telling you, I'm losing it. Once baked, I can separate my 2 parts and paint them separately. Starting by laying a seemingly useless yellow base coat onto the already yellow body. But I must say, doing this adds something to the sculpture that I just can't put into words. With yellow on yellow painted, I can mix up a slightly darker and more watered down yellow, which I'll use as a wash to highlight all the cracks and folds. And a wash usually gets blended in with a dry brush, but that couldn't be me since I'm using the sponge. Since it's the best and it's not even close. I can then dip my brush in some black and with the tip dipped go over all the black parts of his face. As well as painting the points of the ears. Then it's on to all of the facial details, such as making the eyes shine by adding 2 white dots. And making the cheeks shine by adding 2 big red dots. And that's the face done, which means I can now turn my fat hopper and give him his brown back stripes. And don't worry, I repainted the tail later since I didn't want to have it look like he's suffering from a bad stomach. And that's 360 out of 400 pounds painted, which means the only thing left to paint now are his feet and base. And there's nothing special here, I just gave the feet the same treatment as the rest of the body, as well as primed the base green. And now it's time for some static grass, which just tickles my pickle in ways that I can't even describe. So after mixing the Mod Podge and paint glue for the 4th week in a row, I can lay a thick coat onto my field, and crack up my static grass applicator, where I'll have tremendous fun covering my base. Once heavily covered, it's on to some final highlights using some UV resin. I can then glue the torso into place, and that's my Pikachu done. Alright, thank you guys for watching. Let me know which Pokemon or other character you wanna see me make a chubby version of next. Leave a like for love handles and subscribe. And maybe even check out my Patreon if you feel like it. Alright, that's enough yapping in pounds. I'll catch you in the next one. And I love y'all. Bye.